This meeting is called to order in accordance with the Open Public Meeting Act. Notice of this meeting was provided to the Home News Tribune, the Star Ledger, the Highland Park Planet on January 8, 2025, and was posted on Borough Hall website at www.hbborough.com and on the bulletin board of Borough Hall, 221 South Fifth Avenue, Highland Park, New Jersey, and has been remain continuously posted as required by law. Fire exiter to my right and left of Council Chambers. First, can you lead us on the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Mayor Foster,
Here.
Councilmember George,
Here.
Councilmember Hill,
Here.
Councilmember Hirsch,
Here.
Council President Kim Cho Han, Councilmember Pistonik,
Here.
Councilmember Vargas, Borough Attorney Lack,
Here.
Borough Planner Cosenza,
Here.
and Borough Administrator Rivera.
Here. Okay. Tonight in our work agenda, we're going to move right into discussion items. And the first one up is a gas leaf blower task force proposal.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everybody. So I'm just going to provide a little intro to this, and then we can get right into it. But the report that's been circulated before you is the work of the gas-powered leaf blower task force that was assembled earlier this year. Some members are here. Thank you. And this task force was really the result of several disparate boards and commissions, all individually, separately requesting that the borough look into an ordinance that would place guardrails on operation of commercial gas-powered leaf blowers, in line with what we're seeing throughout a lot of communities in the state. This also, this has been this is in line with Sustainable Jersey goals. But it's also been kind of a philosophical goal for many residents here in the borough for quite some time. And I think when we were home during the pandemic, that's really when, at least I started hearing more and more kind of general interest from the public about this type of ordinance. When folks are home more, obviously there's going to be more, you're going to be around during the day more, and you're going to hear the extent of the commercial landscaping that takes place. There are a number of reasons why this should cause concern. Obviously, it's an element of noise pollution. There is loss of sleep, loss of concentration. And it can really have an effect on the day-to-day well-being of residents if machinery is operating too noisily throughout the day. And so these requests were being formally submitted from several boards and commissions, including the Board of Health, the Environmental Commission, and Sustainable Highland Park, among others. So as liaison, as the chair of the Public Works and Public Utilities Committee, I happen to be liaison to the Environmental Commission and to Sustainable Highland Park. And so it was a little bit of an easier lift to kind of coordinate and get a task force put together, the members of which you'll see on the sheet. And I just wanted to thank the mayor for endorsing this task force when we first convened. This effort, also, I should note, this effort was launched back in January, February. And at the time, Tina Weishaus, the former chair of Sustainable Highland Park, was involved in the process too. This continues a very clear goal of Tina's and Sustainable Highland Parks, and also of I think generally we all understand the spirit of why towns do things like this. This report is the result of not only some extensive research on behalf of the task force, but a series of public meetings, as well as a survey, as well as a community survey and a survey of commercial landscapers in the area. And so you'll see some of the findings. We went through a number of items for consideration. Obviously, an overview of the health and environmental impacts of gas leaf blowers, which you can see. And then you can also, on the second page, you can see the second and third pages, you can see what other municipalities have done. They range from a complete ban to a partial ban to a seasonal ban to a, there's a gas leaf blower right there, right in the building. Oh my gosh, I didn't plan for that. So you'll see either full bans, partial bans, certain times of day, certain times of year. It really is tailored to the desires of the community and kind of what it is that we think that is appropriate for Highland Park. You'll also see the what I just mentioned. There's the timeline of public education and outreach. We had a meeting in the community room in the Kushner room at the library, Zoom, that's the follow-up meeting at the library, and obviously the surveys. I'm going to actually leave it at that because I know, Terry, did you have anything that?
Sure. So we discussed the report at a Public Works Committee meeting, and I promised to kind of look into it. Kind of one of the things I tested, and I think we all agreed that whatever policy we would want to put into place, if any, would be one the borough can live with. With our operations, because we too run gas-powered leaf blowers at different times of the year and are part of our landscaping protocols currently. We do have one electric. It is not popular, but our understanding is this is now 2 or 3 years ago. I think the batteries have gotten better and things like that, but we have started to incrementally add electrified leaf blowers into our force. But again, wanted to think through what would the impacts be, kind of starting selfishly from there, and then kind of thinking out. And just one kind of clarification, I think, and I don't know if you said it or not, Matt, but I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. This would apply, at least the way I understood the recommendation, to the entire borough, meaning residents, commercial, you name it. We would all live under this new policy. At least that was what we discussed. We can always change our minds about that. But when I was thinking about it, that is certainly how the examples from the other towns were. So just to be clear, so that would be you and me in our own yard work, whatever we would do would apply similarly. So I took a little look at our own operations with the help of our leadership there. And by and large, while we do use the gas leaf blowers now, the bulk of that work is when we have lots of leaves to collect. We're fortunate in that we don't have huge grounds that we maintain. Our properties aren't as huge as some communities have big parks and things that, that they're responsible for clearing leaves from. But we do use them. And we do use them to clean up after routine landscaping work, kind of shorter stints, but getting blowing the grass clippings back onto the yard, things like that. All the things you see professional landscaping teams do and homeowners do. And so when I posed the question, a partial ban, just to clarify, my interpretation of a partial ban would be you just select a time of year whereby, I'll put it this way, you restrict the use of gas-powered leaf blowers to the high leaf season. Okay, meaning when, I'm thinking it's the autumn, right? When you got a lot of leaves to clear. But a total ban is nobody can use gas leaf blowers ever. Okay, just to be real clear in our borough, I should say. So I asked DPW, if we were going to build towards, and the proposal in the task force report is a 2-year partial ban, meaning seasonally only, and then a complete ban after 2 years. If we had to live with that, could we? And the general sense is we could over the next 2 years purchase the necessary get electrified equipment. And in fact, we use this as an excuse at the lead conference. Mike, our public works director, checked out the latest and greatest in battery packs and other things. So we could do it will it be a little more like we have to have multiple batteries? We have to kind of ramp up on that front. But, you know, again, because our general use of gas leaf blowers is more kind of manicuring and it's not like large swaths of property. We feel like we could do it. We'd have to make an investment and we'd have to purchase probably another at least 3 electric ones with additional battery backups. And I didn't do the numbers to say how much that would cost, but we could live with it. I think it's important to point out that, and the report does a good job indicating like some key constituents are obviously the borough, which I just, but private landscaping companies, larger apartment complexes, of which we have many that have large grounds, and schools. And I know the task force did try to get in touch with them, but I think that's something I would feel better if we did another, if the council is supportive of some sort of policy, we would need to do a little more outreach to those communities to make sure we understand their concerns and, you know, how this would roll out for them. But I think the last thing I'd want to leave you with, and you may have questions about the report, which I may or may not know the answer to, but I did reach out to Maplewood because I think they've had theirs in place the longest. And I talked to their BA who wasn't there at the start of the policy, but he owned it upon arrival and the year in which the ban went into place. And they did the 2-year and then the total. And their experience was pretty good. They found, you know, while there was a lot of concern initially, that it worked out. However, they did do quite a bit of enforcement at the start of their program. And that's something they have it for code enforcement folks they were able to deploy. We do not have that. So that would be my kind of wanting to think through how would we, especially in the first 6 months or the first season, make sure we got the word out to those companies so they know to do the right thing and residents know to do the right thing and give out warnings and second tries and, you know, do all of that kind of stuff. I think we would have to figure out what kind of capacity we have to do that without causing too much animosity. And we don't want to just be neighbors calling us and complaining about neighbors and private landscaping companies. I think that's something I'm concerned about because we don't have quite as many staff members on. I have some ideas about ways we might be able to add some capacity. Maybe that's something through our county health program. We currently use them for our health inspections and various other. So maybe we could add that onto our contract. I don't think it would be free. I haven't broached that with them, but they've done some one-offs with other communities on different issues. So that seems to me like, especially that first year, that first, you know, I think if, you know how it is, if you don't enforce it, everybody knows it and the programs don't work. So those are kind of so I think in general, it's doable, whatever approach we want to take at any range of the spectrum. But I do, if we go, especially if we go to complete ban, I think we want to do an ease-in as recommended by the report to allow that 2 years of education. And I think one of the Sustainable Jersey Action components they recommend is a registry for all commercial landscaping operations, which to me, it's no cost, but that way we can communicate. We have a point of contact with all the ones that are doing business in town. So I think things like that are going to be necessary and will be work for staff that we might otherwise be doing other things. So you need to just keep that in mind as well. But I thought the report did a nice job of kind of covering all the bases and certainly convened quite a few meetings with our community. So I felt much more comfortable, you know, going into it. So that's kind of what I had gone into, and you know, thought might be useful for you guys to hear as you contemplate this idea.
Yeah, I think that's basically it. I did want to acknowledge the members of the task force. I'm sorry, I didn't acknowledge the members of the task force that were here. We have Jonathan Abrahams from the Highland Park Environmental Commission. Beth Stevens from the Board of Health, hey, Beth, and Diane Heimlich, member of the community, but so much more. And Mark Lesko is not here, but he conducts our townwide cleanups and is a member of Sustainable and the Environmental Commission. And so that's really where our discussion begins, and our experts are also available to answer any questions that anybody might have as well. But this is, it's an era of doing things slightly differently, but we're not in the lead on this issue. Other towns have done this successfully, and clearly there's a desire from residents, and whether we can manage that or not is really up to us to decide. I agree about the remaining concerns over enforcement and simply management. So those are areas that we're really going to have to discuss as we move forward. And then any equipment, any expenditures related, obviously council will review any cost related to equipment necessary.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Okay, I would be inclined to the 2-year phasing program, because we have a lot of residents that use out-of-town services and use these landscaping services, and it would only be fair for people to get time enough to get their equipment retrofitted, because there's going to be a cost to the people who provide the services. Even if you're doing it at home yourself, it's still going to be a cost, because you're going to be a part of this universe that does this. So the phase-in method that other towns, I've read over the Maplewood report, they were very comprehensive. I like the phase-in method that they use. And Terry and I spoke a little bit, and we talked about the county and to see what that conversation would look like, and what would the cost would be for us to look at that part of the service. And I do like the registry, that if we created a register with Sustainable New Jersey, that register would be in place so we can easily get information out to these landscaping companies that are there. And I would urge like residents themselves, if they have companies that they use, if they were so inclined to send that information to us, so we can inform and we can do a PR campaign, so to speak, to bring awareness to this. We have, say, 2 years to make it happen, and just keep bringing that information home. And maybe when we do the magnets this year, if we do the magnets for DPW, we can put a number on there and notification that leaf blowers, blah, 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 it's going to be phased out. Some kind of language to let people know that receive those magnets on their refrigerator that this is coming, if we're doing that.
The door hangers are already at the printer. It'll have to be for the next round. They're going out for January. So sorry, that was a good idea.
Okay, so next year they go on the leaf bags and they go on the door hangers.
Figure it out, though. That's a good point.
Those are my 3 staple items.
Thank you, Mayor. I know, so the Public Works Committee did review this, but we still had, I think everybody still had questions too. So I just wanted to mention that.
I think
Jason.
First.
I'm sorry.
Well,
I should have been more of a universe look.
it's okay. So I'm in favor of the phase-in approach or partial ban for the time being, or when we're ready to get there. I guess there sounds like there's some more outreach that we should do, which I think would be appropriate to discuss with the broader landscaping service community. But one idea that I had, so I mean, there's obvious environmental noise and nuisance concerns that we could address by limiting or prohibiting these devices. But there is also the cost issue. This will be a cost for the employers, for the landscaping companies as well, which will just get passed on to our residents in the form of rent or just the service charges. So one idea that I had to help address that would be, we should see if there's any legislation at the state level that would provide some sort of tax incentives or breaks to offset the cost of upgrading to electric equipment. And if not, we should adopt, like we do sometimes, a resolution calling on the legislature to put together legislation to do just that. So that way, and that would also, and I don't know if that necessarily benefit us, because it may just be like a corporate or income tax type tax deduction or exemption or exclusion or whatever it might be. But I think maybe we should still encourage that to help our residents and folks that work in town. So Yeah, and that's something we could also outreach with our legislators, like separate from just doing a resolution. Otherwise, I like it.
I do want to just. Mayor,
Councilman, one second.
Oh, I'm sorry, I
Councilmember
feel
No,
like,
no,
I don't need to respond.
I mean, first thing, anytime you get 500 people to answer a survey, that's that's pretty amazing. You get that many, so. But there are a couple things that I wanted to just, in the survey of the landscaping companies, 2 out of 7 said they would leave Highland Park if this became the law. That's not an insignificant. And then 2 out of 7 also said they would raise rates. So that more than half of them are either going to leave, and they may not leave, but they, in the survey, they say they're going to leave or they're going to raise rates. I think at a minimum, we would expect that rates would go up for consumers. I don't have, there's, getting 7 of the landscape companies was good. I think there's a lot more that we might try and also reach out to others to see if that's consistent in some respect. One thing, and to Jason's point in terms of cost, I was actually thinking that I wonder if there is, not that I'm interested in spending all that much more money, but is there a process, is there a bulk discount? And if we are buying these anyway, if we're buying, and then those could be, we could help the transition to the landscape companies where they could get them at a discounted rate as opposed to a rate that they might apply. I don't know if that's legal, but it might be another way of sort of saving some of those costs to the landscape companies. But then also in terms of enforcement, how easy is it to tell when a gas blower from an electric blower? I don't have a sense of, like, one is a rocket ship and the other is a.
One is extremely loud.
Fair
It
enough.
smells.
Fair enough.
The smell the gas.
But there might be a more technical way.
Fair enough. One of the biggest concerns that I hear about leaf blowers is that they show up at 8:30 in the morning, right? Or they show up when you're really, really early. I wonder if in the phase-in stage, we might think about hours restrictions at some point, so that try and concentrate that in the middle of the day, as opposed to doing it at 7 o'clock in the morning or at night. Maybe there are restrictions on hours as part of that phase-in. And then I guess the last thing to just bring up, the way that it came across to me is that we're guaranteed of having a ban in 2 years. In the phase-in process for the first 2 years, what if it's a disaster? What if we can't get,
Repeal the ordinance, I guess.
we'd have to repeal it, or we'd have to do that, change it at some point. So I just wonder if we would do a 2-year pilot program and then adopt after the 2-year pilot program what we would consider sort of what we've learned in those 2 years or 3 years or something, that we have this strategy that we've been using, and if at the end of in 18 months everybody's has done it really well, all the landscape companies nobody's leaving, or they made that transition, or we've made that transition well, would it be better to hold off on the ban until we learn from the phase-in process? To say in the phase-in process is our pilot program, to see how it might work. I'm not wed to that. I just think that's something we want to consider, is not having a guaranteed ban at the end of 2 years, but try and have the ban fit what we learned in the initial process.
Plain devil's advocate. If we say, okay, we have 2 years, we're gonna phase, and if we say we're gonna make this happen in 2 years, we put the enforcement parameters for this to happen in 2 years. If it's not working, then we can say it's not working. But if we say, oh, we're gonna look at it and then evaluate and come back, then people are gonna be much more relaxed not to comply. If we say this is gonna happen, then people are they're gonna take preventative measures to make sure that they can take care of their properties and they'll go out and they'll make that extra effort.
So without the ban, you're saying that people won't.
Yeah, why would I? There's no incentive. Another thing is,
Well,
that's one.
If we put, if we put restrictions on hours, the incentive is
And that's where I was going to, restriction on hours. Most of these people who you see doing landscaping, and they're out early in the morning, these people have families, they have homes that they go to, they're minority workers. First, we're putting a cost on them and we're going to restrict their hours again. So even more, they're being penalized.
We're restricting the hours for gas leaf blowers.
We're restricting the hours for their operation. You mentioned restriction of operation hours.
No, I said.
So it would not be, they wouldn't come at 8 o'clock in the morning, for example.
They wouldn't, I'm sorry if I misspoke. What I
Oh.
was saying is they wouldn't blow leaves at 8 o'clock in the morning. They would do other things around that, because landscape companies don't come to just blow leaves, they come to do other things. So if the biggest concern that I hear is they're there at the crack of dawn and it's noisy and it's loud. So I don't hear that about lawnmowers, I don't hear that about clipping, I don't hear that about raking, I don't hear about that. But if the leaf blowers started at 10 or something like that, I think a lot of, and I'm not saying you can't show up earlier, I'm just saying you can't leaf blow during those early hours. I'm wondering if that's something that could be considered. It's not saying you can't come earlier, it's just saying no leaf blowing until a certain time.
Yes.
I don't have a response to the hours. I'll be curious to see if, I didn't dive into some of the other towns to see if they also played around. I feel like I read that some also limited hours a day, but I don't want to swear to that. One point I wanted to say, because when I asked in Maplewood about the question you had about the 2 out of 7 saying we're leaving, blah, blah, they did get a lot of like, there was a lot of like, no way, we'll never, it didn't come to pass.
Right.
That was the react. I'm not saying that's predictive of Highland Park, that's one town,
Yep.
that's a survey of one. But I think when, you know, surveys better than I do, like when asked, would you, you know,
Right.
and you don't want it, you're gonna say, I will absolutely leave this town immediately. But, so I think, you know, take that for what it's worth, but I had that exact concern, and they said, they absolutely said that. I expected all hell to break loose on band year, and it didn't. And they didn't really get a lot of feedback from residents either. Now, their socioeconomics might be different than ours, or maybe a lot of other things we gotta consider. They're a bigger town than we are, so they might have, like, we may have more landscaping companies that work in multiple towns, and so now we're giving them different rules here than they have in Edison, or, so those were thoughts that crossed my mind that could be challenging for some of these businesses to manage. But the, you know, do I think they're all gonna just vaporize? Because no, because they've been here a long time. But anyway, I thought that was interesting.
Councilmember George?
I've been following this for a long, long time, and I've been to the meetings at the library and Zoom. And I still have misgivings on a couple of grounds. One is, if you're just looking to do it because you don't like the noise, that's too bad, because they also use lawnmowers, and everybody has their own. Anecdotally, on a street that shall remain nameless that looks just like South Second, there's a neighbor who comes home and obsessively blows his lawn every night. Every night. It can't be one blade of grass or one leaf, and it's not steady for 10 minutes. It's on and off and on and off for 45 minutes. If it's just about noise, that's too bad. This is the 21st century. Get over it. And Matt was right. We did notice it when we were all home during the pandemic, and it never stops. Never stops.
All is the
But
operative word.
one of the, I went to electric, but I actually have a corded one that plugs in because it's the smallest carbon footprint, because there's no batteries that get thrown away that use up rare earths. And it has a low setting, and it's not anywhere near 65 decibels. And it's mulching, so you can reverse it, and it mulches the leaves and puts them in a bag. And literally my lawn, which isn't the world's biggest, is 3 bags of leaves instead of 20. So there are ways to do it. But now in particular, when you're talking about, regardless of whether it's a private program or a 2-year phase out or a 1 year, and that's it, you do it. With the tariffs in place now, I checked the machinery over the weekend, and I stopped again tonight at a hardware store where they actually sell the big commercial units. And they're up significantly. And the guy said it's because of the tariffs. They're super machines and they have a quiet setting. But they're like, he said, they're 50% more than they were. So if we're looking at an increased cost to get our fleet going, you're imposing the same kind of tariff, essentially tariff on the commercial companies, and they survive on that profit margin. I also agree with the mayor with the fact that I said this in the very beginning of these debates, probably 5 or 6 years ago. This targets a particular minority population, and I have a significant issue with that. And you can't get around it. It is a straightforward question, and you hear the ridiculous ideas being put out by our federal government and some federal legislators, fortunately not ours, that, well, we won't enforce immigration against our landscapers and our kitchen help because we need them. Utter showing of how discriminatory this can possibly be on an as-applied basis. So I still have that misgiving. And the mayor pointed out an interesting point, which is when you're enforcing this, and whether they do go out of business or not, or they reduce their staffs, this is people's livelihood. My landscaper, who and they're all Hispanic, told me the last time he was in doing leaf cleanup that to get by, they're actually offering house cleaning services now year round, including bridging over the non-landscaping season, so to get by. So if we're looking at putting a cost on top of that, the other issues, I'm not sure. I might have been able to get over that misgiving and say, it's the cost of doing business, but it's not that much more. But with the tariffs and with a business that I've been doing business with ever since I was no longer physically able to do my leaves, that when they tell me that, it means that something's going on. And that was one of the questions I did have that Terry was talking about, was what has been the experiential level? I'd like to know what Montclair has been experiencing with the total ban.
And Maplewood has a total ban too,
Yes.
but I reached out to Montclair. They have a new administrator, like literally brand new, so, and he didn't know, and he put me in touch with the council person who didn't get back to me.
Yeah, I knew a lot of the older administration, but a lot of them are new.
So, yeah, so I thought that was probably a little more comparable to us,
Yeah.
and that's, I was hoping, so that I'll pick back up on that. I think that's a good.
Yeah, and obviously this is a project for 2026, but the flip side of it is I am in favor of moving something forward so that we get the public debate going on it, and everybody gets to share one way or another, because this is there are a lot of aspects to this issue that don't necessarily surface, and I think that discussion should be around a 1 year, get ready for it, it's coming, and then a total ban, because I don't support the 2 year phase in, because the question is, on a commercial basis, I now have to go refit. I have to go refit my business. I have to start planning on that. So when do I start doing it? Start doing it now? Do I gut out a year and say, well, maybe I'll start it later? Maybe things will be cheaper. Maybe I'll have more employees. Maybe I'll be able to get more employees. Maybe, and I need to see what the borough and the other municipalities are going to do timing wise. Because if you observe it, they start early and they also run late because they have to make that quota. They have to do that business, and they have to do it during the season because they have to bridge over. Having worked in the trades for 10 years, I'm used to that bridge over in the cold season. When you can't lay brick, then you can't lay stone. And I did that for 10 years. So that's part of it. And as the mayor said, it's supporting the families, but it's bringing the money home. not just getting home for dinner, it's bringing the money home during the season. So that the hourly part, making it 9 to 5 or 9 to 4 and not on Sundays. I'm not sure. I think we have to engineer that a little more carefully. But I think that the discussion should be a 1 year, get ready for it, and then a total ban should be our focus so we can discuss all these issues and see if that's what the residents want to do.
Yes.
Task force members are here as a resource for us. And if we wanted to, I think Jonathan can probably speak more about the outreach to the business community as well. I did just want to mention a couple of things here, just as matter of course. So Jason, yeah, you mentioned a state law. There is a proposed state law sponsored by our neighboring Senator Smith that would ban some gas leaf blowers for most of the year and provides credits for up to 50% for people who buy electric ones. Now this is pending legislation. It's not passed. We have a new administration coming in, so we take that for what this is. But there is certainly interest in the legislature to move forward with some type of statewide guidance. At the state, the bill would prohibit, the ban would be effective 4 years after the bill's passage, and would also limit the permitted use of a gas-powered leaf blower that has a, and it would limit, it places limits between March 15th and May 15th and October 15th and December 15th. Just very quickly, just kind of an overview of what some of the other towns do. And I think that we should, moving forward, we will dive further into other municipalities, but Montclair has a ban on gas-powered leaf blowers year-round. Princeton prohibits gas leaf blowers from December 16th to March 14th. And May 16th to December 30th, to September 30th, excuse me. Glen Ridge permits gas-powered leaf blowers during specific periods of the year. Maplewood has a full ban. Maniloking has a partial ban. West Orange is going into a full ban in 2026. Currently, though, they have limited usage. The prohibition is March to April and October through December. And the hours are limited to 7:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. So, this is, and I can go on, but again, so these are the guidelines that we can kind of draw from based on our own experience, here in town. I think this report provides a really nice foundation for us to build off of. As chair of the Public Works Committee, I have some major, not negative concerns, but just concerns about the investment that the borough is going to have to make, and there's going to be some lead in to that and prep time. So I certainly endorse having a delayed launch as we if we have an ordinance, thereby begins this program, and then we can start putting building blocks in place before it actually gets moving. But if there's any questions about the business outreach, I think
my biggest concern was to restrict people hours for making a living. And, it's livable wage that they're working on, and it's hard work. It's not easy work. And to limit the time in which people can earn a decent living, I just don't think that's not fair. 7:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. I think that's good. In the springtime, 7:30 a.m. the sun is up sometimes at 5:30 in the morning or 6 o'clock in the morning. So, we're gonna be all inconvenienced somehow, but I don't think 7:30 is an unfair time for people to start their day and to make what it is that they for a living. I think 7:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. is good. You had a question, Justin? Oh, I thought you could raise it.
Oh, no. I was just
Okay.
looking at.
All right, I was just rambling, but but I think the 7:30 to 6 p.m. is very fair. And I also think that, a phased-in approach, a 2-year phased-in approach, because as Councilmember George says the tariff 50% increase, so you're really gonna need a phase in time so people can afford to retrofit their fleet to get these items, to purchase them. It's gonna take some time. Councilmember Hale?
Just real quick, I think the bill in the state legislature has been there since 2024, if not earlier, and never moved out of committee, so I don't, it's not a hot. But one question I have, and maybe the experts know this, are landscaping companies likely to retrofit or buy new ones, or like, can you retrofit a gas to turn it into? No, you can't. You have to buy a brand new one. So it's not about changing the equipment. It's about shifting to the new
But they're
technology.
changing them over anyway because equipment wears out after a couple of years. They're constantly buying new equipment. There's a landscaper out of Cranston who's all electric, and he's a big advocate of this. And he claims, and he runs this as, you know, like a called Green Sky, Blue Earth. Is it Green Earth, Blue Sky? Something like that. In there. And he claims that it's cheaper to do it because he doesn't have maintenance, because electric is without maintenance.
Interesting.
Compared to gas. Gas has a lot of maintenance. And once you turn over, and the batteries is the biggest issue of any things. But once you overcome the battery part of it, let's say, I'm not an expert in that from that perspective, it's less expensive to operate the electric.
I'm gonna ask you, because this
want
is
me to
being
move?
taped. Yes, if you could either speak at the microphone.
I gotta turn the light on.
Oh, it's not
The
on?
light's not on.
Oh, it's not
I
on?
just noticed it.
Okay. You want me to take it over there?
No, you're actually on camera from there.
Okay. So what we found is with this landscaper, I don't remember the exact name, Blue Sky, Green Earth possibly, all electric and everything, not just his gas-powered leaf blowers, but everything, all of his equipment. He claimed that you can run an all-electric, and he's actually tried to come into Highland Park, but he needs to have, since he's out of Princeton, he needs a certain minimum number of clients to service this area.
Maybe those two.
It can be less expensive to operate because of maintenance. In addition to all the other benefits you get, environmental benefits, health benefits, the operators themselves get a health benefit. Someone who's operating a gas-powered leaf blower, you have noise issues and you have air pollution issues. Those are, and a lot of them don't wear hearing, wear the hearing, the headphones or whatever it is, and also they're not wearing masks. So it's actually an issue. Yes, it's a huge economic issue on the companies. We know that, and we're not sidestepping that. And in fact, we discussed this environmental commission with Councilman George when he was on there. We are definitely understand that. But to be honest with you, right now they're already violating the noise ordinance. I guarantee you, anybody who's operating a gas-powered leaf blower is already could be cited for violating the noise ordinance straight out. Like they could be cited for that, and when nobody's enforcing that, because these things are operating at such high levels. There's so many other reasons why the gas-powered leaf blowers are the soft spot in going. It really is everything. Actually, it's all equipment, like you mentioned. It's lawnmowers, it's everything. But this is probably the most environmentally and health-wise piece of equipment that's overused. They don't do it for blowing leaves. We know that. They clean up the sidewalks. And they're doing it out of season. So if we started to at least get them to say, okay, you have a leaf blower, use it for leaves, only in season. And then then we want to get them to now start using things that are a little bit, they really shouldn't be blowing the leaves anyway, because even if they're using the electric, they're blowing dust and all sorts of pollens, and that can give you the health perspectives of that. I'm looking more at just environmental perspectives. The health problems are, much worse actually. We saw this more as a health issue than an environmental issue. To be honest with you, that's how we pushed it. So I've been really pushing it more into the Board of Health to show why it's a Board of Health issue and environmental is a secondary issue. But Highland Park has to think about, do we want to have leadership and follow the other towns that are going forward? Or we want to wait till the state maybe does something? We're a small town, small properties. Do they really need to do this? Can they figure out better ways to clean up the lawns a little bit longer, a little bit more expensive? Can they use electric? There's other ways to do it. And we can educate them, we can give them time to do it. Could be 3 years, could be 4 years. But it has to be something. If it's like you said, if it's just like a partial ban, probably it'll slip. And it's hard to enforce it. Oh, it's the day after the, who remembers what day you can stop operating them. So, these are all the consideration points, I think, as the council starts to think about what they want to do, where they really want to be, at the forefront of it, where they want to follow other towns' leads, and, consider what you think is best for Highland Park.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Councilmember Hale?
Yeah, if there is a company that is an all-electric company, we should get that company to come here to talk to our landscapers. If there's an economic benefit of that, we should try and, as part of our outreach effort in the future, we should have a presentation or a explanation or someone to make that argument, because they're going to listen. Other landscapers seem to me to be more likely to listen to other landscapers who have experience with this. And so if there is evidence that this is cheaper and which I think is going to be the primary driver for landscape companies,
So it's a good
not
point,
the
yeah.
health and all of that.
He's willing to come.
I mean, to
He
the
said
extent that there is that,
Yeah,
that would
he does a lot. Abner is his name, the one who runs this Blue Sky. He's not the only one. I think even in town, I've seen other small operators that are, I do all electric, but these are not professional landscapers. Maybe these are mom and pop or even a teenager, but they do advertise, hey, I'm going to do your lawn for, I'll see them like on Facebook or something. I'll do your lawn and I do electric. These are probably not commercial people, but again, that will appeal, I think, to some residents. We know that because there's a lot of people who think about these things. In addition to the noise is also, I don't know if particularly, you mentioned something about having a 7:30 in the morning. Well, the garbage trucks come by, they start around that time. But it's really people also working from home, or somebody who's not even working from home wants to sit out in their yard. You can't sit in your yard when the properties are so on top of each other. So it's also a quality of life issue throughout the whole day and throughout whenever they operate any of the equipment. But these are particularly egregious, I think, is the if it were up to me from the environmental and maybe from the Board of Health, we would say go back to rakes and brooms and stuff. I mean, that's go back to the old days, right? But like you said, progress is here, so we'll take the one that's a real outlier and start with that one, and maybe we'll start getting people to think about better ways of doing things. You got to start somewhere.
I would just, one small thing to point out, Montclair, Princeton, and Maplewood are different communities in Highland Park, meaning that the increased cost in Princeton doesn't mean as much as it does here. And that's
They're all different, you're right. Montclair is ethnically diverse, though. It's very diverse. It's got very large multi-million-dollar properties. It's also got the small properties, which also exist too. So, you're right. Everyone is different. But Highland Park's a good example. Westfield's been trying to get it enacted, by the way. We didn't go into the negative ones that failed. There's communities that have failed. In fact, unfortunately, that report I wrote, West Orange actually reverted theirs.
right.
And it's not a report because I think at the time I wrote the report, it hadn't been, or either I wasn't unaware of it. So West Orange actually, like you said, they actually, I think they pulled they were going to do a full ban and they actually pulled it. But we have to, it's hard to keep up with all the doings of every community. But it is possible if it doesn't work out, then, we can always reverse it if you really, but I think it's like anything else. I think people will eventually adjust. And I don't buy in the fact that the landscapers are going to stop servicing the community. I think that's kind of maybe just a little bit upset, a threat maybe, but I feel that there'll be somebody who will step in. Competition is always good, alternate ways of doing things. So.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Other questions?
Yes, no, there's two more questions.
You want
In a moment, please, in a moment. Jason?
Well, yeah, I just had a quick point with regard to the legislation. So I can definitely see that particular bill, which also had the component of an outright ban statewide struggling politically and not really having the momentum to move.
You mentioned if there was any state effort. So that's why I said.
I was
not
responding.
banking on that legislation.
Oh, yeah, no. I was just responding to the other Matt's concern that wasn't moving, but I was thinking what I think might have more likelihood of success of actually moving and becoming law is a standalone tax credit bill. So that's what I was saying, like maybe we should just go back to the idea of a reso to kind of encourage that kind of legislation, the standalone tax credit, which I think may have a better, not that that legislation isn't worthy as well, but I'm just saying in terms that a standalone tax credit may have a better chance of actually passing and becoming law in the short term. So
I don't think so with this economy. I'm just saying, that was my inside voice. Sorry.
I just wanted to speak in part to the cost of the transition. And there are some towns around the country that have worked out deals with their local banks to offer discounted loans for contractors to purchase the equipment that they have to purchase. That's something, we've got Unity Bank, we've got Provident Bank, we have a couple of places that are, based in this town, and they might be willing to do something like that because it's a community banking requirement that they help out the communities they're in. They have, pressure to do that, and they might be willing to do that. So it's one thing to think about. The other thing is that it's tariffs aside, the cost of electric has been going steadily down. Now, I don't know how the tariffs are going to mess with that, but I just wanted to get that. Lastly, the batteries are getting much better and they last longer. And what a lot of the companies do is they have batteries that are interchangeable. Your weed whacker, you take it out, you put it into lawnmower, you can put it into the blower. So there's a constant kind of rotation. So it's getting easier to do. But if anybody has any questions about the health aspects of it, just let me know.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes.
I just wanted to mention a couple of things. So obviously the towns that were cited are wealthier. Let me back up. So I'm fundamentally a reporter, and so I don't try to bring dogma, or I try not to suppose anything. So if we do, as we move, if we move forward with this, I think a lot of the economic benefit discussions with local businesses are going to be necessary to help inform us as we move forward. The point of this is not to move forward with an ordinance right now. It's to just kind of get the council to see if this is something that we want to move forward with. So I agree. And I think that, from an economic development standpoint, I think it's hugely important. I do have, I think I'm really comfortable in our role to regulate business. I'm a little less comfortable, and I would like to hear more about regulating individual personal equipment. That's something that, I just want to know a little bit more about. And then when it comes to wealthier communities, it's the same old adage. It's like, the environmental justice communities tend to be the poorer, less resourced ones. And the ones that are wealthy have the resources to remove particulates from the air, to remove sound from the air. And I just kind of wanted to state that up front, that this is not a rich people ordinance. And I think it's really important for us not to look at this in that way. Yes, there's going to be, some type of added burden, as there is with any regulation. And it's really important that, we find partners in the, in the industry who can really inform us clearly on what some of the sacrifices are. But when it comes to clean environment, and when it comes to, noise reduction, that is not the domain of rich people. And I think that's just important for us to point out.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for coming out. Thanks for sharing. Good. All right, now we're going to move on to track A redevelopment plan amendment. And
do we want to just, do we get a sense of,
Oh, you want to go? It's
No,
it's
no,
the
no, I don't
three of
know.
you that can move. Oh,
yeah, I don't.
oh, it's four of you. Yeah. I was thinking, okay, so not enough for a quorum for a vote, but
Oh, no, I mean, do we want to do an informal kind of, are we okay to kind of move forward and do more fact finding and explore?
Oh, that's what I thought this whole
Yeah,
discussion was
absolutely.
about.
Okay, all right, no, I just, that's
No,
a
I
huge
thought the
first
whole
step.
discussion was about. you know,
I probably
doing-
set the expectations of the task force. I was like, this is when we know whether we can go forward or not.
Okay, sorry.
So, no, thank you for
The
that.
council members, how would you like to proceed or not like to proceed?
I think we should proceed.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, absolutely.
Looking at the things
We should
discussed.
continue to investigate,
Okay.
and I think we should push for that resume.
Thank you. Thank you, task force. Thank you.
I
Thank you
agree
for
with
coming
Doug.
out.
There's no reason we can't do all of that.
Awesome. All right, we're gonna move on to the next subject, tract A redevelopment. Amendments. Amendments, yay.
So just a reminder, on my birthday, we had a wonderful community meeting. I was like, how do I remember this date so well? To talk about the proposed development for tract A, which for those of us who don't know where that is, that's basically starts at 101 Raritan, right up through to the edge of where the new Elenicon Cafe is. And 101 Raritan is Bergen Auto or Joe's Garage or whatever, many number of iterations. So similar to with tract C, which is our farmer's market lot area, we knew when we did the plan, we wouldn't exactly know what building we end up soliciting, ideas for. And similarly, we did amendments coming out of our community meeting for tract C. We're now coming out of our community meeting for tract A. Behind me are the boards, but I actually, Mayor, with your permission, I'd like
Sure.
to share my screen just
Please do.
so anybody watching from home or on the video later, these are just the images we shared at our community meeting. Hold on, let's see.
That's the before.
Okay. So, let's see if I can make it a little bigger. No, it doesn't seem to matter. Oh, there we go. So this is the before and this is the after shot looking with your back to New Brunswick, looking down Raritan Avenue. And then the other way, there's that in Lenicon. Yeah.
I have to jump in. It's so nice.
That's a great-
Elenicon said the same thing to me every time. They was like, oh, it's so
And then
nice.
that's looking down from Lenicon toward New Brunswick. So we're trying to figure out, okay, we developed this plan, I guess it was 2021. And we now know there are certain areas that we need to look at in order to have a fully conforming project. Because we essentially want to set them up for success when they get to the planning board, assuming we agree with the tweaks to the plan that we think they're reasonable. So what I was hoping Chris might do, this was just to kind of remind us all what we're looking to try to achieve, is just kind of walk you through, and because of just we're at the year end, we had actually hoped to be able to get this done in December, but it just didn't happen. And so the idea was to get you all kind of familiar with what we're thinking in terms of, and we work with the developer and their design team to try to identify these areas in the plan that might need adjustment. So that way we could move quickly in the new year towards these amendments. You'll obviously have a chance to see these amendments. And so will the public, as part of the usual ordinance adoption process. So with that, Chris, maybe you could walk the group through what we've been looking at.
Yeah, no presentation because the comments we received from the conditional redeveloper
Mhm.
was actually pretty minor in the grand scheme of things, which is good because we started with a concept plan with no developer. So to hear that we're just looking for tweaks, it's actually a good sign. So there's really two categories of changes, one that's specific to tract A and others that are really applicable to all standards, really minor things. So specific to tract A, it's to allow for residential on the ground floor, as you see in the rendering. There's some townhouses and duplex, mainly on the walkway side, just a limited footprint. Same type of amendment we did for tract C. Another amendment is to clarify the height of the building. It's 5 stories is already allowed, really as a tower element, and it's stepped back on the 5th floor. This is to clarify, to allow for a little bit longer building, that loft looking brick building style, just a little bit more distance on frontage to allow for the concept plan as shown.
And just to step back a second, Chris mentioned those duplexes on the ground level. This is that corner we're looking at. It kind of wrap around that little walkway.
Yeah, the
on the
intention
side
is
of the
to
building.
break down the massing as you transition to the neighboring office building. Another amendment that we're seeking is on the side of the building next to Lennicon is to make it 5 feet, but also push back the top floor so it doesn't loom over the residential property owners fronting on North Second. That's always been a concern of ours. As a reminder, the underlying zoning, the CBD, allows for a 0-foot setback of 90 to 50 feet in height. So this is like adding a little bit more stepping back, really in protection of the homeowners as some shade be created. And lastly, specific to tract A is to really an internal discussion, but just want to put it out there. They're asking for some temporary staging area for trash recycling. We want to make sure you don't see trash cans sitting out next to the Lennicon.
Yes.
But this is intended to be only for a limited amount of time in the morning for pickup. Since the retail will have it's a little trickier to have it downstairs. But these are some things that we'll continue to work with them prior to site plan submission.
And just to be clear, because I think it's probably of all the little tweaks that we knew were coming, that was the one that Chris and I were most concerned, and something that we are really being mindful of in all of our discussions with downtown redevelopment is the waste management and how we want to kind of elevate. We know we've had the toters are everywhere, so we're trying to, when we have redevelopment opportunities, how can we make it almost invisible to the public? So basically what's the current thinking is, and you can't really see in this image, but along, and I don't know how to make it like a hand or something, sorry. But basically there would be a door access there that they would then bring the stuff out on garbage pickup day, private haul, not, that's part of our plan, but in no way would the people sitting in the cafe in the Lennicon be looking at garbage sitting in the alleyway for that building. So we've gotten that clarified to our satisfaction, but we're gonna make sure that the plan is amended to reflect what is allowed and what isn't allowed.
I would say those are the really main changes specific to tract A.
That's a really big one with me, that the garbage is, because we have enough issues with that on the avenue. So
Right.
when a new development that must be hidden away nicely. And
This might actually be an opportunity to help the Lennicon trash pickups. You have 5 apartments, so that could be a way to kind of resolve some of that too.
great.
So those are the really big changes for tract A. Some of the minor tweaks that apply to all tracks would be, there's a good comment raised by their planner, which was to how do we deal with the transformers? And they were concerned about it being subject to principal structure setbacks. It's a nuanced thing. So I'm gonna be writing in accessory structure setbacks, so a little bit limited step back, but make sure it's not on an avenue. No front yard AC units or transformers. So I'm gonna be adding accessory structure setbacks. Some tweaks on allowing for projections like bay windows. Right now it's 3 feet. They asked for 4. And the thought was, well, for me personally, I would love to get windows on the side of bays, to get more light into the units. So I think an increase to 4 feet is reasonable. And I'll probably make that suggestion for the underlying zoning in the future anyway. Since the building is so long and so big, but broken up into different parts, we're going to tweak the provision that says it must be made with masonry to say it's primarily masonry, just so that they're allowed to do fiber cement panels and boards and whatnot. And make sure those changes happen at inside corners. As you can see in the.
Oh, I took it down for you, sorry, Chris.
Even if there looks good.
Right, it's a nice picture.
It'll be the last image.
That one? There you go.
Yes, so you can see on the 5-story building with the brick, how the brick returns and hits the gray part of the building. That makes the building look like a masonry building. If it was just the face of it, it'll look like it was stuck on it real cheap.
Wow.
So that's more of an architectural treatment, make sure transitions happen at
I
inside.
had to listen carefully during our meeting to understand what he meant by inside corner, and I was like, oh. now
But
I understand.
Nancy, the architect, who also did the presentation, she's really good and we're like on the same page, we were clicking.
Yeah, or even here, you see how there's this here and it would wrap around the side, I guess.
And the last change, you can actually keep that up there, is relative to landscaping along the avenue. If those who are in construction are aware in the fire subcode, I believe, there's a prohibition now of combustible materials along buildings, meaning you can't mulch
Right.
against a commercial building. So this is the request, and I agree completely, since it's timely, to separate the landscaping requirements that will be along the curb, in which case that's our opportunity to enhance it, because we also want track C to do the same thing, just enhance tree pits, some stormwater management at the curb to the extent that state allows it, as well as, and separate that from the landscaping that will be along the base of the building. That's pretty much it for,
I was
To
actually.
create more rain gardens.
to the extent possible.
Well, I don't know if
give
we're
us
looking, but I
sidewalk.
think we're looking at the tree pits, and the kind of these on steroid tree pits kind of serve as a
Rain
different
garden.
kind of green, but not the rain gardens where we've had.
No, not
challenges.
those modernized ones.
Manicure.
Modernized ones.
But the one, we really want these trees to thrive. And I think if we get those enhanced pits, we'll be in, we'd like to at least see if that makes a big difference.
Can we get cherry blossom?
Matt
That'd
will
be
bring that
really pretty in the
request to the
spring.
Shade Tree Advisory
Yes.
Committee.
And you wanna get rid of-
Might be in
wait,
the-
and you-
I do not believe it's on our list probably. because it's
They would look
not-
really nice in the spring.
might need more
And the
people.
root systems are diagonal.
Yeah, so
Or-
I'm pretty sure that's a no-go. But maybe there's something flowering to your point that we could consider. So yeah, so it was a relief in going through the memo. At first it looked like this really long memo, but then it was mainly, they did a very thorough job. But a lot of the kind of adjustments and amendments that we're looking at for A are very comparable to the kinds of adjustments we had to make for Track C's building to work. So we felt very comfortable. So Chris will be working on the amendments to the actual plan. We'll also update the history and how we got here to reflect where we are now versus, where we were in 2021. Same thing we did with Track C. And the only other kind of major substantive, easy change, but very substantive, we will be recommending we add the block and lots for the classic leaners properties as area in need of redevelopment with condemnation, which would be a necessary amendment should we decide to proceed with the condemnation effort. So we're still in negotiations and we may never need to go to that point, but it's an administrative step we will have to take. And if we don't amend the plan to do that, we can't pursue that. So it's just following through on that designation. So that would be another amendment to the plan that's not specific to the design, but is important to potentially the implementation of the project.
Oh, I think Matt was first this time. I'll hold my time to Matt. That's
Oh, wow, look at you.
I just thought maybe a good idea. The amendments are coming to us, the amendments, can you just walk people
sure.
through the process?
So, yeah, I feel like, but I recognize we don't do this every day. So we're talking about them now. Chris will draft them. We'll then review them both by the attorney and the council will have the opportunity to review them. Eventually, when we think they're ready for prime time, there'll be an ordinance to adopt those amendments. They'll be introduced at a council meeting. At that same council meeting, our typical practice is to refer the plan to the planning board for review and master plan consistency review. They will do their thing and hopefully they'll agree these are consistent. And then council comes back to council first for a public hearing. So the public will have another opportunity to comment on any of these amendments and then adoption. So there's 3 meetings of public bodies once we have an amendment in which to present. So and then hopefully it will get adopted, and then we're one step closer to actually building this building.
Okay.
Jason.
I was just gonna say real briefly that all of the amendments sound very reasonable. I guess we need to finesse the waste management piece, but hopefully we can work that out relatively.
And that could also
quickly.
be, some of it is in our redevelopment agreement. We can probably, we can handle some of it in the plan and some in the agreement.
Perfect. I was gonna say, I think someone astutely noted earlier that this is very nice, so I think we should. just-
So, thank you.
I think we should move forward. Agree.
All right.
Agreed.
So,
Absolutely.
Okay,
And we're in a good place.
We're in a
The
very
team
good
from
place.
Tantum has already done a good first pass, so we kind of know it's more about the wordsmithing that Chris is so good at, so.
All right,
we'll
thank
figure
you,
that out.
Grace. All righty. 420 to 424 Raritan.
Good news, all I'm gonna say is, we had hoped to have those done and ready for review before the end of the year. We are still working on it. We talked about that previously. This plan amendment was authorized over a year ago. Essentially, we wanted to extend updated zoning to the full block where now the super fresh is. Right now, it just applies to the properties that are, the parking area and the super fresh building. This would include from 5th to 4th. And so we're gonna get that done, and I just wanted to, it was secretly a hope that we would have something to share, but we didn't quite get to it, but it's okay. It's just, we feel like we'll regret not getting that done, because then that'll be the next kind of building goes for sale and we don't have the plan
Right,
in place. So it's just trying to get out ahead of that a little, since we're really extending down to the corners. We're not really coming up with some radical new concept there.
Yep.
So that's all that is.
Great.
So,
Any questions on that? Cool. Okay, updating permit usage, central business district and commercial zone.
yeah, so this we talked a little bit about when we started talking about the Rite Aid. I shouldn't call it that, the former Rite Aid location and what kind of uses are permitted there. And I had mentioned that Chris and Ratuja and I were working on kind of, we felt like we need to look at our permitted uses and these are uses that are allowed in the central business district, which is basically what we consider Main Street, as well as this commercial zone, which is basically a portion of Woodbridge Ave up and an Upper Raritan. So those are our main commercial zones. There are maybe some pockets here or there, but those are the ones that I think. So Chris, I'm going to hand it off to you because you've done a lot of the thinking and organizing, but essentially, we felt the definitions were wanting in a couple of times, we've had to bandy about, somebody comes in with a use and we all have to just try to get our decoder rings out to decide if we think our zoning allows it or not, which isn't a good place to be. So we wanted to try to add some clarity and also open up opportunities for other uses that we might want that just for legacy reasons aren't allowed. So with that, Chris, maybe walk us through kind of where you are and some of the things you put in your memo.
Yeah, in the memo, it's really indicate the purpose of this is to really modernize and expand uses for purposes of supporting economic development, and also to really for ease of administration, because the worst situation being is, does the borough want this? How do I interpret this? Do I need to go to the board for interpretation? And from our practices as a planner is, sometimes you see ordinances where they list every single possible use, and you have to go through pages and pages, like, oh, I don't see office showroom. I guess we're not permitted. My suggestion is, which I think we all agreed internally, was stick with broad categories, but stick the really detailed uses into the definition, such as and including, as well as similar uses. That way there's some balance of interpretation, but also make it really clear. In the ordinance at black, in your memo, which is what we currently permit, and in red are.
But not organized this nicely.
So we're cleaning up.
Yeah, a lot of cleanup, a lot of administrative change. We'll make a significant change. Among the uses that we're adding is an indoor amusement establishments. That'll be like arcades, game rooms, escape rooms, and whatnot. Indoor recreation, that's clarifying that gyms, dance studio, yoga studios permitted. Massage body work, only because while they are considered personal service, I want to separate the two because massage shops are separately regulated by a license through the borough code. The banks and financial institutions are only allowed on second floors, but there's many banks on the ground floor, so we'll just allow on the ground floor, but still prohibit drive-through banks. Just really expanding through to food and beverage, obviously. Still prohibiting fast food as well as drive-through restaurants. Package stores and taverns is really where you need a license to sell alcohol, but also adding for clarity, brew pubs, breweries, wineries, because it's a modern use. in your current ordinance, you have an allowance for art studios and art instruction space, but only as an accessory use on second floors. Like, I thought Highland Park was about the arts. So we're going to make the visual and performing arts and maker spaces sort of like ultralight manufacturing, as well as art galleries, to make it clear that they're all allowed. Essentially, places where you can create art and display art or practice art, like music, acting, music, dance, and whatnot, theater production. So we're gonna make that permitted use on the ground floor. Public assembly facilities, like what does that mean? So we're gonna add a definition and clarify that also includes flex spaces. So party rental spaces, demonstration kitchens and whatnot. Pursuant to state law, as is required for all non-residential districts, child daycare centers, licensed ones at least. We're gonna add that in our zones to make it clear. So when people see, oh, I guess they don't allow for nursery schools and daycare centers, but they are allowed pursuant to municipal land use law. Offices are only allowed.
I learned at the planning board. that-
Councilmember Hill, would you like to speak? I wanted him to just finish his statement. Sorry. Go ahead.
I just wanted to add that we learned at the planning board, you can't stop nurseries and daycare centers. And I know that there was some discussion when we were talking about the property formerly known as Rite Aid. Whether or not that was one of the things we added and as we were having that discussion, the planning board attorney informed us that they're always allowed. And so we had not allowed them, now we would. So
This is more of a cleanup.
it's more of a cleanup.
We all learned that one through that planning board meeting. I'm sorry, Mayor, I did the same thing.
He did the same thing. I want Chris
He
to
made
just
me do
finish
it.
his statement.
Yeah.
He made you do it, huh? Go ahead.
The irony is when you read the statute, it's been in place since the 80s. Anyway, so offices, so they're only allowed accessory use on second floor. We're gonna allow them on the ground floor, but not fronting Raritan Avenue. That's sort of, I would say of all the changes, it's probably the biggest change.
Why not fronting or marginal?
I think the concern is that you had a lot of empty space after 5 o'clock. That's really the primary reason that I've really. run
And window
into.
display, boots on the ground.
Yeah. But this will include professional offices, so they include physicians, medical, lawyers, architects, government offices, post office, that's already allowed on the ground floor. There already is one. And also clarifying this could include shared and co-working spaces. Medical cannabis in class 5 and class 6 are already allowed. That's not changing. One other big change in addition to office is allowing for multifamily apartments, not as accessory use, but as a principal use, but not located on the ground floor.
Oh, okay.
So really no change, just moving from accessory to principal. And then lastly, borough or county operated public facilities. For whatever reason, it wasn't in there now, we're gonna just add it in for clarity. In case there's community space you want to have downtown, which could include, well, actually it's gonna be in track C, the Highland Park Main Street. The C zone, it really is the same thing as CBD, but allowing for offices on the ground floor fronting the street and multifamily apartments on the ground floor, but not fronting Raritan Avenue and Woodbridge Avenue. And that's just strictly apartments. So I mean, I asked the board council if they have any thoughts on what that means, or should we limit or expand it? That's really my main question before we start developing the ordinance. But that's really the main changes. Also, the difference between the CBD and C zone is that C zone allows for laboratories, but that's an existing permitted use. We're not changing that.
Just briefly, because Chris touched on it too, it's always been something of a concern is looking at a little more of a liberal use of ground floor residential, because there are ways to plan it where it's not directly on Raritan, but can be part of a unit that's built on Raritan. There's several reasons for it. Number one is affordability. Number two is ADA access. When you have to provide ADA, low income or sub-level income for with ADA access or for targeted populations. You want to be able to provide that and not have to build it as an exception. But it also provides more available space for affordability. So if I put up a building, but I'm not allowed to have ground floor apartments, I've got to put in commercial space, whether I want to or not, including down the block, there's 3 more new vacancies. So why are you going to make me build commercial where I can limit that commercial to the front, where I can do a maker space or a flex space? But in the back, I can put ground level apartments. Ground level is immediately accessible. No elevators, no steps, no curbs, no nothing. So I don't have to put extra money into it there. So now I think the building where I was going to put 6 units, I can now put 9 units. And that increases my affordability count by 1. And ADA accessible and affordable. So I think when we formularize that, I totally understand the formula. The planning, the concept goes back way back of not having offices that go dark at 5 o'clock, facing your prime boots on the ground space. But when we ban it completely, we're cutting off that back access. So I think we need to plan that a little bit better. I'm also not a huge fan of the old 80s formula of all commercial on the ground, because I think it's failing in a lot of ways, or it's just not reaching goals in a lot of ways. We're cutting off affordability, living space, and the trend of our Gen Z people, some of whom have those in their households, are moving away from that. They're moving back to the city. They want to be where it's funky and loud and fun and not driving anywhere. And that's who's moving in. That's who's moving in.
Councilmember Hale?
Obviously, I 100% support these. Just a couple questions. Borough or county operated facilities, does that exclude if the state of New Jersey wants to put a facility? And I guess what I was thinking is technically Rutgers is the state of New Jersey. If there's a state of New Jersey facility, I don't know if borough or county covers it, but let's say that something from Rutgers wants to maybe
Academic use.
Academic or governmental.
I mean, I just think maybe we could add the state of New Jersey if they want to do something. We'll take them as long as they pay rent.
Academic, administrative, and government.
Yeah, because in light of that question, the question I wrote down was when our track C development, we're looking at putting Main Street somewhere in that development area with that.
So they're already regulated through a redevelopment plan, and they will be considered the office space.
Just on the medical cannabis dispensaries, and this may have just been time, when we talk about class 5 retailers and class 6, there's this clause about consistent with our existing ordinance, subject to the requirements set forth in the code about cannabis. Just want to make sure that the medical is also subject to those, just in terms of, because the way it read on this particular page is medical cannabis is just a term, but medical cannabis is subject to the same cannabis rules that we have for retail. So just make sure that that's consistent. And then I don't know how to say this other than saying it. I have a memory that we've had some issues with massage parlors being
Yes, memory serves you well.
being something
Other.
than massage parlors.
That's why it comes under personal service.
There are legitimate massage parlors and there are
Illegitimate.
I just figured that if we're talking about massage parlors, that might be something we want to consider, that we have massage parlors in town.
On the second floor? I'm sorry.
I knew you were going there.
So I
I'm just trying
separated.
to be delicate. I don't know. I just is there a way or a distinction or something about the difference between somatic therapy and body work and stretch? Like there's Metuchen has Stretch Lab, which is it's not a massage place, it's a stretching place, and it's somehow.
So a place like that will be still personal service. The issue is once they start touching the skin.
Right.
And in the touching, they actually just recently adopted an ordinance to restrict the number of licenses offered. That's something you could do here. For the purposes of zoning, the reason I separated two, because they're, in my opinion, are distinctly different uses. And this gives us the opportunity to potentially remove them from the CBD or the C or both as permitted uses. But that's a bigger discussion, which we should have. That's partly the reason I wanted to separate two, because I'm kind of glad you brought that up, because I want to hear from you where you want them to be located, permitted. In addition to potentially expanding your licensing ordinance, which I think is chapter 247.
I'm gonna expect a fair number of emails telling me how wrong I am about this, but I don't think I want massage parlors in downtown. Just my initial reaction is I'd rather focus on gyms and other. But again, I guess I don't know enough about the distinctions along those lines.
Councilmember George, I'm not touching that one.
No,
No pun intended. No pun intended.
then you're on the massage parlors, not personal services. The issue there is, you have an establishment that offers a number of different exercises, gymnastics, hot yoga, regular yoga, and massage or stretching therapy. How do you, is that an accessory to the use, or is it separately regulated? Do they have to have a separate license? And again, one of the concerns the biggest concern I have is a dark street at 8 o'clock at night. The boots on the ground with lights makes money. And I don't care what you say about it, but when you have half the town dark, you got a problem. When you have a vacancy in every block every other month, you got a problem. And that's one of the problems we need to work on. If they're going to keep the lights on a Thursday and Friday night, some of the corners, if you watch, especially this autumn, especially the block around Mr. Pie and then the bubble tea across the street, there's a lot of liveliness there. People are filling up our supposed, living rooms on the corners are actually full of people. And that's what they're doing. But the lights are on there. There's a lot going on. The music is out on the street. It's really pretty cool. It looks like a real urban town. But my bigger concern is, is having a proper business. I think that the massage parlors need to be regulated because we have had our problems. On the other hand, most of them are small operations. They don't tend to be gigantic. They try at least to be spa-like and quiet, play the Zen music and all that kind of stuff. And they're good for business. And they stay open on a Friday night. The lights are on, at 8 o'clock. That's a good thing.
I see that. I just brought it up as.
No, I know why you did. That's good point.
Something that needs to be considered. Deeper dive. Councilmember?
Thank you, Mayor. Just really quick, thank you, Chris. I just want to clarify a couple of things. You mentioned fast food. Can you expand on that? We had a prohibition on fast food. I thought we just had a prohibition on signage.
We don't want a McDonald's.
I'm just saying, I don't know. But what is fast food? It could be anything.
You currently have a prohibition on fast food establishments, which
Sorry?
I may have to adjust.
What is
definition
fast food?
slightly.
It's all fast food.
I can refer to the ordinance, but it's mainly food that is prepared quickly and prepackaged, often from frozen. And
Every bubble
often
tea ever
has,
made.
sorry,
Every bubble tea ever made, right?
that's why we need to tweak the definition, make sure it in a way prevents the McDonald's you're talking about, but still allows for a restaurant. For example,
Like a 409 burgers, that we haven't.
that's clearly not fast food because
Right.
of the way you order food. You can customize your
Oh,
sandwich.
okay.
But like Chick-fil-A will still be fast food.
Yeah.
But Chipotle would not because you're building your sandwich, your bowl.
Mayor, I'm sorry, you had your back on.
I'm sorry.
So I actually am glad you raised that, Matt, because I wondered about, I guess personally, I'm sorry, like, I feel a little uncomfortable with the term fat. I think for me, the fast food was drive-throughs. Like I 100% agreed. We didn't want the, you know, with the drive-through. But to me, it was the fast food part of being in your car and you don't even have to get out of your car and you can eat it driving away. That was kind of what I thought. So it's interesting to hear how everybody else is interpreting fast food. Because in my mind, I guess I didn't think that a McDonald's would be prohibited if they didn't have a drive-through and that that could possibly be considered, you know, so I think it's worth exploring that a little bit because I hear from people sometimes more than I'd like to.
What if we got a
that
Five
they
Guys?
would love a chain. Like, why don't we have any of the chains? Which to me, I'm like, but we have all these cool little places. But I hear that, you know, you need a balance. And so I get a little nervous, you know, because then it's like, well, we don't like McDonald's, but we like Five Guys. Well, why? You know, what? How do we, from a zoning perspective, I agree with you from a consumption perspective, Mayor, you know, like but so I think it would be helpful to hear people's thoughts on that because I would rather be more inclusive than less and control how they look and how they function than trying to engineer what chain does or doesn't come to the borough, but that's just my bias. So I'd be curious how you guys think about that.
So the current definition of fast food restaurant is an establishment that includes one or more of the following characteristics. And among them is serves food through a drive-in or drive-through.
That's maybe where I got the idea there.
There's three other things like devoting 45% of your establishment to food preparation. But that's really a function of how much space you have for the overall store. Usually, whatever usually means, serves food over a general service counter or takeout counter, never. But I think my sense is takeout food is okay. I think we've seen the changes from the pandemic.
That's just also the way the world works.
Right, but takeout it was for a while not permitted, especially in the C zone, I believe. So as part of the changes of definition, I do want to relook at the fast food restaurant.
Yeah, I think that would be really good.
I wasn't.
One more.
No, I wasn't done. I wasn't
Sorry,
done. I'm
sorry,
sorry.
Matt,
No,
Oh, you weren't done?
no, I'm sorry. No.
Okay.
I apologize. I just, and honestly, it's just.
All right, go ahead.
Just a little more. So on fast food, I just want to say that if it's the difference between Chipotle and McDonald's, I don't think that's something that we should necessarily differentiate. And then thank you, Chris. I just wanted to mention the office use. I just wanted to agree with Councilman George that you know the importance of lighting on ground level office space. I'm sorry, I lost it. Would there be would this change? Obviously, there are some legacy properties and uses, and they would remain, right?
For offices. Correct. So this would actually allow for more offices on the ground floor.
Okay.
So whatever exists now.
Oh, wait, what did I? Yeah, actually, I think that's what I was gonna. I was a little confused by the.
Yeah. So in the CBD, currently offices are only allowed in accessory use on upper floors. This ordinance, which suggests allowing on the ground floor, just can't front on.
Front facing Raritan.
So this is more flexibility.
Can't be front facing on Raritan. Okay.
And in a C zone, you're already allowed professional offices, but I'm just going to remove the word professional and say offices in general.
I didn't want to single out any specific uses, but I will anyway. I've noticed that, there is kind of a burgeoning courier, courier operations in town that do shipping to faraway places. We've had at least two, and I think they count on Woodbridge Avenue is now a shipping company. Are there any do you have anything specific about courier use, shipping, UPS store, that type of thing?
We used to have one.
We did.
Yeah, so I would say if you were asking me to interpret what it is, it falls under personal service establishment, which would be under the photocopying and printing service centers. I could add and shipping facilities, but UPS store is more of a store that also ships. I would say shipping is more of an accessory use. But if you have a concern about allowing those types of uses, which I would not recommend prohibiting, I just need to know, make sure to carve that out as not being permitted. But for the moment, I would include that as similar to the printing.
No concern. My only, and just with the office, my only issue is I just want to second what Phil said, is that when they're dark at night, especially corner property we have in town, we have we have buildings that used to be ground level retail that are now ground level office, and it really changes things for not for the better.
Yeah, related to that, so I'll make sure I call attention to this. I want to make sure this is clear. Under personal service establishments, for a moment, I've included uses like travel agency, CPA and tax preparation offices, and real estate services. So in many towns, it really comes down to a preference and policy decision. They may classify them as office or commercial offices, and where commercial offices are allowed on the ground floor, but not general office. So I just want to get your feedback on CPA and tax offices, a real estate office on the ground floor on the avenue. This ordinance would classify them as personal service business, which means it would be allowed on the ground floor, which many of them do already exist.
We do have them.
Just to, if you don't
Terry?
mind, the one Chris and I have been grappling with this one a little longer, and you know, the way I've been trying to think about it, if this helps, and maybe it makes it worse, is I'm trying to think about personal use, like businesses where an office where anybody can walk in and ask, or, you know, like it's got a more of an open door storefront quality to it. So like, hi, I need to get my taxes done. Knock, knock, can I come in? Like that kind of seemed okay. Where I get a little more apprehensive about offices is more where like, it's just a private office that is just doing a workspace.
Right.
That they just happen to have a good rent or something, and it has no real reason it has to be on a main drag in our downtown. So, but maybe that's too fine of a distinction, but that's where I kind of was like, well, the first kind of can add some dynamism. I can think of many towns where there's a real estate office and you look in the window, you look at what's for sale. It adds something. It's, well, usually they're.
We have it downtown now.
Yeah, I know, but I'm saying like this would basically permit that
Yeah.
in a more overt way than it is currently in our ordinance. So I just wanted, so conceivably there could be 4 more. And so I guess I want to just make sure that was clear, but I think that's how I've been trying to kind of think about it, are things that kind of add value to the streetscape that have a little more dynamic quality, as opposed to just the curtains are drawn and we're just getting our work done in here. And yes, there's a door, but it's not really, you know, the public.
Yeah, so the current definition of personal service business is odd, I'll tell you that. It's providing a service to individuals regarding their apparel. So
Their what?
Our apparel.
It's only apparel, but the ordinance, the intent of this ordinance is to clarify that we're providing a service to individual and businesses.
Could allow cleaners, which are horrible.
And to the point of making sure that the windows are not, the shades are drawn. Part of this could include adding a couple of design standards as performance standards to make sure individual accessory office space or office space in general are not abutting the storefront, and the windows can't be, you know, drawn with shades at all hours during the day. So there's a certain performance standards, they're not related to zoning, that could be added to the ordinance.
Could you add?
I like that. Good. Councilmember Jason had a question before, but I'll let you go on.
Could you add something about general public access to, like, during business? Like if you are a lawyer in an office doing your job, people have to make appointments to come in. But if you are if
And
someone access to, you know, somehow, because the part of the goal that we're trying to get to is that the things on the bottom floor are things that people go in and out of. Correct. Because they're gonna go in and then they're gonna go to Lenacon, or they're gonna go someplace else. So could you add a
Yeah,
public access?
So you could strengthen the current ordinance, which says, I believe, in the CBD and C zones, whatever, there must be an access point from the front of the building, but it could be enhanced so that it's more of a publicly available space, like a lobby or reception space, but not individual offices.
Right. Yeah.
Against the window.
That would get to the idea of trying to make sure everything that's there is activated. Not
Correct. Even if it's not occupied, at least there's a space that it might read as an art gallery.
Right.
But at least you can walk in
Mhm.
and then engage with someone.
Councilmember Jason.
Thank you, Mayor. So there's a lot brought up and I'm trying to remember everything, but I think I had an opinion on most of it. But just at the outset, I just want to note that generally I'm in favor of this and want to see this move forward. It's sort of a no-brainer that the fact that we haven't allowed indoor amusement establishments, recreation facilities, like all sorts of fun uses. roof
Prohibited.
areas. Yeah, we prohibited it. I
it.
mean, I think this is long overdue. We really need to move that forward. There are a couple of nuanced items that came up here that we may want to have a little bit more discussion about. The very first point that you made, Councilman George, about the multifamily apartments. So I know that when we were just talking about amendments to Tract A, we specifically were considering or including an amendment to allow for a limited amount of even Raritan front-facing living spaces. So I'm open to that if others are open to that. Maybe it's just a percentage of the property, so like a bigger property can't have the entirety if it's Raritan or Woodbridge Avenue facing first floor, and maybe this is limited to the commercial zone as opposed to the CBD. But maybe there's some opportunities for a couple of ground floor units that even face, but like not the entirety of the building, maybe just some, because again, like those spaces, it's certainly better. Yeah, it could, that's good from an accessibility standpoint. It's good from an affordability standpoint, and there just may not necessarily be the market for all the commercial. We can at least offer like flexibility on that. On the fast food, I agreed with Councilman Hirsch that I'm not sure about the distinction between McDonald's and Chipotle making sense. And I was with Terry that I had no idea that we had a complete ban on fast food as is. I thought, I think the drive, I mean, we already do have Dunkin' Donuts and Papa John's downtown, which I would consider fast food. I'm not opposed to having, a few more. But also I just can't think of a really good justification to necessarily exclude those, save for, I think, not having a drive-through, especially in the CBD. It just wouldn't, from a traffic safety standpoint, make any sense. And also, there just isn't the property for that to work, but certainly shouldn't allow it. But beyond that, in terms of the different types of eateries, I'm flexible. I don't know if I want to weigh in on or if I'm prepared to weigh in on one of the other topics. But I was intrigued by the idea of not necessarily, or having limits on the extent to which your property can have, shaded enclosures or screens up for the entirety of the day, or just, I guess, for all times. Like, I feel like that, I don't know. It just doesn't seem like an inviting space. I don't know if I think it detracts from, I guess, the vibes of the downtown. So maybe we should explore, maybe that's something we want to think about. But again, since we're carving out here for purposes of this proposed idea, we're just carving it out as a separate class that we could regulate separately and not necessarily have to address all of those issues here. Maybe that's a separate working session meeting or something.
Well, I'm separating it now because it's already separately regulated, so it makes sense to separate them for purpose of licensing. And also future proofs changes where if you do decide to, let's take it out of that zone, or let's add more standards on the licensing, which is a separate ordinance that affect land use, that gives us ability to kind of deal with that.
Right. So in terms of limiting the screening that they could have on their the windows on the Raritan facing or Woodbridge facing storefronts, would that fall under that separate licensing, or would that be part of this?
I would say design standards should apply to all uses downtown. And for a use like that, it would require some sort of space, reception space you walk into.
Yeah, I think
if there's private suites for massage therapy, that's fine. It's deeper in the building.
Right. I think I would like to see that at this level then, and move at least that piece forward. And then what were the other things that we covered? I know that Councilman Hale just made the point about the distinction for offices that serve the general public or businesses, so that people are coming through the door. I think that's a good distinction. We should move forward with that. And I also agree with Councilman Hirsch's point about allowing the courier services, so that we should add that to the definition. shipping, I think, but that probably falls into sort of like, it's a service or an office that was generally serving the public. I think that was everything I wanted to address. So otherwise, I would just say, let's move it forward with these little tweaks. I think that it seems like that we're on the same page on. And that's all.
Just one thing on the windows, there's the building on the corner of Raritan and Fifth. That is an office building that is locked up tight during, it's got shades in front of it. It's just it's a cool looking building, but it's definitely doesn't feel accessible to the public. If this moves forward, would that change what they would need to the existing building, which
An argument to me that the grandfather then.
I didn't know what that
With the Toy Story.
with the Toy Stories.
Yeah.
Okay, Terry?
That's actually a good segue to what I wanted to say. We also did a lot of work on our signage and did develop some storefront standards. And there are places that are violating that for various reasons. We've deliberately not just gone out there like violation. What we want to try to do as a separate project is some outreach. And we've been talking with Chris about developing like a easier to understand kind of interpretation of what we want to try to encourage and but have a little more of a soft touch, perhaps, a knock on the door. You may not be aware you're papering up your front is actually doesn't, so I think there are some things already in our ordinances that would allow us to pursue some of those remedies. I think that office is already there, so I tend to agree it's grandfather. I don't know how it got there, but it did, and so we're kind of living with it. But we can certainly start to carve out some outreach and just try to find some of the kind of the worst offenders, for lack of a better term, and try to work with them a little more collaboratively. And I think the issue about lighting is something I've been thinking about a lot, and Richard has already done some research into some programs some towns have done elsewhere, not in New Jersey that I could find, where with small grants, like to try to incentivize storefronts to have some kind of, even if it is a salon and they're not open after 6 or 7, they can put some rope lighting on the interior to just kind of illuminate, so it adds to just the safety and the kind of vibe, so that you're not just going from a lit building to an empty lit, it gives it a little more character. So I think there's ways we can achieve some of these things, even if there are no changes in what's there for a little while, as things cycle in and out, that I'm hoping to find some time to pursue. Because I think they're all really valid and would go a long way toward making things nicer.
Before I go to Jason, I just want to ask, I thought we already had it on the books that there could be no covering of the storefront, that we just have been very relaxed in our policy.
I think there are, and Chris, I'll defer to you on the most recent update. I think, we have sign limits and things like that.
And covering of windows and stuff like that.
The exception being for some of the cannabis businesses because of the state law.
Yeah, that was separated out.
But I think, Chris, is that correct?
Yeah, if I recall, we added some general standards.
But some of them may predate the standards that we adopted, but I think there's no reason we can't try to get them to adjust their frontage.
Because I remember a number of years ago, we had this big to-do in town about people covering windows and they were not happy, but they had to take them down. And I think we just got a little relaxed over the years.
Mayor, one of the challenges that we stumbled into when we looked at that ordinance initially this last round was the one side of the street in particular gets a lot of sun exposure. And so trying to think creatively about blinds and things, because like even the salons, they're like baking in there, some of them, depending on which side of the street they're on. So that is a challenge, but there's ways to do it. And you certainly don't have to wallpaper your storefront. You have to have louvers that can be adjusted. So certain times of day. So those are all kind of things that are just, we're gonna have to work our way through.
More shade tree.
Okay, Jason?
Yeah.
Oh, I think that more or less resolved the concern, so we don't have to touch that, maybe that subject.
I would like to see that, and I also think regulating, like looking at how we're inspecting and getting into some of the licensed massage establishments, something I've been researching. Actually, I learned about Metuchen's recent ordinance, and again, the county is actually gonna help them, I think, with some of their enforcement on that. So maybe that's an area where
We
with a
can
little
tap
more
into.
routine inspection, we'll see some improvements as well.
What Metuchen did is they limit the number of licenses for purely massage establishments, but they also separately license individual therapists that happen to offer that as a service for day spas and whatnot. So they're catching both, where it's predominantly massage therapy and where massage therapy is offered as an accessory service. So you can,
So we can look at that, but also just look at how we've been implementing our own ordinance and just see if it's time for a tune-up.
Councilmember Hale?
I think the chiropractor has massage. One of our chiropractors also has
It
a.
would make sense if that was true. I mean, they kind of relate.
So that's bifurcated already.
I would want to learn more about what kind of concern, slightly negative concern, about what Metuchen did to limit. I'm not crazy about limiting use of anything, or limiting the number of use, unless there's obviously a pre-existing law that requires us to do so. So, we don't have that prohibition on other stuff.
Well, I was mostly interested in the enforcement aspects and
Yeah.
like what they were doing, on that front.
so we did talk about the liberal use of residential on the ground floor. I just want to understand the boundaries of that.
Okay.
I heard a few different topics. So where would you be okay with residential on the ground floor?
Before, Mayor, may I jump in real quick?
Sure.
I just want to make sure everybody heard, Chris, that what we were proposing in this draft was in the commercial zone, apartments would be permitted on the ground level, but multifamily, right?
Yeah, multifamily, but the way it's written right now is they still can't front the street. They can be on the side street. And
On the sides, right?
Where it is now or where we're proposing?
the current ordinance doesn't allow residential at all.
See, I was imagining it would allow it facing Raritan, so that's an interesting, I didn't realize.
So you have
that's-
your apartment facing Raritan?
So for example, we've been talking about those two projects on Upper Raritan.
Mhm.
We have a redevelopment plan that allows
Mhm.
apartments on the
Right.
ground level, kind of like the Frederick on River Road,
Mhm.
where maybe we just don't have enough, they're there for commercial use or what have you. It allows commercial uses on the ground floor. So in my thought was, we don't know if it's a success yet, because these projects are yet to come to fruition, but should we consider that the C zone's a little different and we want to focus retail and commercial ground level energy in the more CBD zone? And so to be a little more flexible, to your point, Phil, about having more accessible apartment living, especially with the road diet coming on the ground level facing Raritan, may not be the worst idea. Chris did ask me, what do you think about single family homes on the ground level in the C zone? There are currently a few. I think they're fine as pre-existing, but I wouldn't suggest that would be my first choice to put a single family home. So I was thinking multifamily, but I would love to hear. So, but then downtown, I get a little nervous about just allowing it on the ground floor, because how big this frontage we're dealing with. And maybe the suggestion Jason had was to look at that percentage, if you can limit it to a certain percentage of your front. And that's going to limit the number of buildings, because we have so many small little fronts, so there's going to be very few. But that is part of redevelopments. That's where we've been able to be creative about it, because we have more to work with and we have a little more of the tools in the toolbox to get the design right. So those are just things I wanted you to think about as you respond.
Councilmember Hale?
So in track C, there is housing on front row in the center, and some in track A, there's going to be also the housing there. That leads me to believe that we should consider housing in other places as well, to not prohibit it.
Yeah, I like the idea of, I was a little cautious with the apartment on the ground floor. I don't think it's a bad idea to allow for ground floor apartments. Could include townhomes as well in the C zone. These are really the fringes of Raritan Avenue by Edison and on Woodbridge Avenue, again, the fringe by Duclos. On CBD, instead of percentage, you could say residential allowed on the ground floor south of First Avenue. And we still have we deal with it in the core of the downtown area through redevelopment. There's ways to do it, as long as it's easy to administer. So something to think about.
Yeah, originally what it,
Councilmember Jason first.
oh, I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, I like the sound of, I think that logic makes sense, that for the CBD, or at least the core of the CBD, maybe we only have those allowances for the larger redevelopment projects. May not make as much sense in the smaller properties that are left. But then I definitely think it makes sense for the commercial zone and maybe portions of the CBD, the outlying portions of the CBD, to have some flexibility for the front street facing residential. So they're kind of along the lines of what I think we're both suggesting.
Okay, Councilmember George.
I like the flexible approach. I think is appropriate, especially because a project may change from block to block depending on what the builder wants to build. One of my thoughts was that there's no in a single building, as opposed to saying, well, if you build on the side streets are okay, but in a single building with its primary fascia on Raritan, there's no reason why the rear of the building could accommodate apartments. Primarily because if you're putting in parking, that's where it's going to be, or underneath, giving even more accessibility because you have your vehicle near your house. The formula to say the residences don't even have to, their entrance doesn't have to be on Main Street. Although their fascia, the windows may well face Raritan. You could, because they can have a side entrance. You talked about the art gallery entrance with the building, more to the sides. It can be, I think the more flexibility we build into it, the better off we are. But I can agree with Jason's idea that you may want to limit those. For instance, so we're looking at a building here, and theoretically, you can in the loft style building, it looks like the Singer building along the Parkway. You may have 6 apartments that theoretically could be on ground floor, but they don't all have to face. They don't all have to be apartments. Number one, only 3 out of 6 could be apartments. And they don't have to be accessed from the front. The issue is when you say you can't have apartments on the ground floor, you can't have them there at all, as opposed to having a rear entrance where the developer can say, you know what, I can put in 3 more units and give you more. I can give you 3 more units, whether you make them affordable or accessible, doesn't matter. I can give you 3 more units. Because I could put the door in the back. So that's the flexibility I'm looking at. Is no reason to take the rest of to ban the unit from the entire building when the developers can show you, because we shouldn't be showing the developers how to build these buildings. We're not developers. We don't got it. We never will. Municipalities are antithetical to developing. But if we give them the tools to really design something that's special to Highland Park and not anywhere else, now you're going to get a really good product because they're going to come to you with a good product. And opening that up when the market is looking less at the old formula of all commercial downstairs gives them more flexibility, because they could do that if you want. But to give them the option to have ground floor units where they can fulfill our quotas, their quotas, which are also required, greater flexibility than we have right now.
Terry?
And I agree with Jason, that's what we need to do.
So is it a fair way to kind of state what you're saying is that basically, rather than prohibiting it on the ground floor, we would maybe allow ground floor, but not facing Raritan? Those units wouldn't be facing out onto
Front
Raritan.
facing.
We have that similar approach to the offices.
I would agree. I would agree
Is that a
with
fair
you.
way to kind of for a general approach?
I would agree with you from the Doughboy to the top of the hill at the light at Adelaide. No Raritan facing entryways for first floor.
Okay.
I think it's different in C. I think that's more you know, the little brownstone development of 5 or 6 units is much more appropriate there.
And just a follow-up, I just wanted to point out, we have another successful example of this downtown in the CBD, but it was part of the redevelopment of what we were then calling the pop-up property. Now I like to call it the Atlanticon space. There is an accessible unit off on the side, which was not only an ADA, but I believe it might be one of our affordable units as well. So your point is very well taken that, again, I tend to think they work better in these redevelopment contracts where we can really noodle with the developer on how to do it right. But it's an important, the accessibility point's a really good one. And if we can figure out a way to get more accessible apartment living downtown, if this is a way to do that, I think it might be worth thinking about. Sorry.
I think that all makes sense. One thing I wanted to bring up is the development up on 8th, the 18-unit development where the oil lube is.
Oh, I know it as 1010. I don't know that it's
1010. I'm sorry,
between what and what. Yes.
1010. Sorry, I can't remember the name of lube oil. I thought one of the things that we had talked about in that redevelopment plan is that some of the units on the ground, some of the office space or retail space on the ground floor, didn't we give them the flexibility that if the retail wasn't working, they could turn it into a studio?
Mhm.
Something like that?
Yeah, we're basically saying, should we consider the same zoning approach that we used for the Upper Raritan plan? And that was an amendment to the plan, that's baked into the plan.
Right.
Extend it to the C zone more generally. If we're comfortable with it, it's rather than try to do a redevelopment plan for every third block. If we think that approach kind of makes sense, yes. And in fact, the other project, which is, I forget the address, say 1010 is easy to remember. The next one up, 1102, their current proposal, which we shared in a previous work session, is no commercial or office. It's 100% affordable. I'm not affordable, multifamily residential. So, and we were good with that too, because it was consistent with the plan. And hell, if they find there's a there for some use, they can always retrofit the corner to do something. Or similarly, if the commercial space currently proposed for 1010 on the corner, they can't find a good occupant, they could convert to something else. So I think basically in working through those two projects, I think Chris and I got a little more comfortable with that whole concept for the corridor. If council, it sounds like you guys are at least open to that.
For the C zone.
For the C zone, as kind of a general, and that road diet, which I hope will come there, to me makes that make more sense, because we're taking some of that highway vibe. It's going to still be not perfect, but hopefully over time that eases and becomes a little friendly.
It also addresses Highland Park's really long-standing land use issue, which is your commercial zone is too big. So by allowing residential ground floor in a C zone, kind of in a way compacts it to the core that we're desiring.
It's now 10:05. You want to extend our?
It's actually,
It's 9:05.
sorry, the clock does say 10:05, but it's wrong.
9:05.
Do we need to extend our hours?
That's what I was looking at, saying, we're out of here.
Oh my God, it's 10:05 already.
And
I was going to extra an extension of that. Okay, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, and this is like the first cut.
Right.
So we have a lot of work to do, and you're gonna have another chance to see what you think of based on this feedback.
Any other hands? Okay. We're good? All right.
So would you want to
Okay.
revise memo?
So we need to give Chris a direction now. So
We did.
revise
Yeah,
memo
right.
updates and just provide us with updates.
Okay.
Thank you. Oh, and now it's time for public comments. Members from attending in person will be heard first, followed by those on Zoom. 21 minutes, 3 minutes per speaker.
How much you guys pay me to shut up so you can get out early?
You have to come to the microphone and.
It's okay, you guys can go home.
Okay, anyone on Zoom?
There's a one attendee, but no hand up.
Okay, seeing none, may I have a motion to
So
close
moved.
public participation?
Second.
All righty, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
See you guys next week. Don't forget to come out to our,
Monday night.
Monday night, Tuesday night,
night,
it's all
Wednesday,
about
it's
the.
happening
Yeah.
Next
you
week.
gotta come out to follow up on South Third.
We're finishing the year hard.
Yes,
I think
Going
it's
out
gonna
with
be
a
a
bang.
good time.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people. I was
South
talking to
Third, come on
somebody-
out.
I've been trying to make plans with a friend and I'm like, I'm working that night, I'm working that night, I'm like, I'm sorry.
We're
Trying to end the
burning
year.
the midnight oil up to the end of the year.
Board meeting tomorrow. Board meeting Thursday.
Story of our lives.